Hello, Celin here, clinical psychologist from Melbourne Wellbeing Group. If you saw our latest post, you will see that we put up a pretty cool picture of the sky, but a part of the sky that I think we all look at in awe. You know that when you're on an aeroplane, and the plane goes high above the clouds, especially on a day like today in Melbourne, it's quite overcast. High above those clouds is the sky where it's completely blue and it's peaceful, and you kind of get this feeling of serenity about you. So I wanted to share a little bit about you, a little bit with you, a way of how to access that for your own self, but in your own mind. Wouldn't that be cool? So it's I'm going to go through a little bit of jargon at the moment, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can access this part of our mind. It's called the observing mind, and the observing mind is a phrase used by people who use acceptance and commitment therapy as a form of treatment. And acceptance and commitment therapy is a form of treatment that allows us to kind of just observe and acknowledge what's going on in our mind, to bring an attitude of openness and curiosity, and to really kind of bring awareness and to work towards a form of acceptance that what we're experiencing in our mind and in our body is happening, and it gives us tools to help deal with it. And when we're dealing with that, we decide to make a commitment to acting and to doing basically almost the opposite of what our mind is wanting us to do. But kind of doing that is hard, and it takes a lot of practice. And so I wanted to share a little bit of an insight into how we can access this part of our mind that takes a step back and just observes what's going on rather than getting caught up in it. So if we take the sky that we posted on our feed as the metaphor to help explain that, bear with me while I do that. So the idea is that our mind can kind of represent the sky, where we have all our thoughts and all our feelings, and all our experiences, sensations, urges, memories, etc. that occur. And when that's happening, it can feel quite tumultuous sometimes, almost like the weather, where there can be a hurricane going on, there could be a blizzard, there could be rain, there could be wind, it could be absolutely anything going on. And our feelings can feel a bit like that, in terms of it can feel quite intense. And it's easy to get caught up in that if you have a think about, when we're walking through that sort of weather and experiencing that weather, it gets quite uncomfortable. But imagine if we were above all of that and just observing and looking down at all of that. We would be not caught up in it. We would be able to kind of take a step back and observe what's going on. So a technique that we use in helping people to do that is something called diffusion. Diffusion is really just a fancy way of saying separating from unhelpful thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories, and urges as they come up. Now, it doesn't mean that we get rid of them or that we change them or that we even stop them from occurring, because you know what? Unfortunately, we can't help what pops up into our mind sometimes. If we're triggered by something and it's got an unhelpful association linked with that, we're going to feel uncomfortable. And so what happens in that regard is, or what we do in terms of when we want to separate from that, is to use a set of phrases that can help us to detach and to separate. So again, we're not trying to push them away, we're not trying to block them out in any way, shape or form. What we're trying to do is drop the struggle. And by doing that, we can use phrases like, for example, if you're having a thought about giving a presentation, or you've got a thought about a work project that's coming up that needs finishing and it's making you feel uncomfortable, you might say to yourself, I'm thinking about work, or I'm thinking about school, or I'm thinking about that argument that I had with my friend. And when you say, and when you repeat it in that way, what you notice is that you've started to create a bit of a healthy gap between you and the unhelpful thoughts. And it allows you to then exercise a choice. It allows you to then go, I can either keep thinking about this thought and worrying about it, or I can take a step back from it, give it a bit of a break, and then go back and have a think about it, and I might be able to approach it again with a clearer mind. So when we use diffusion in this way and use that phrase in that way, what we're essentially doing is creating a bit of a gap. But what we're doing is we're kind of rising above the clouds, where like the metaphor, it's like we're jumping in the aeroplane, we're rising above the clouds and we're observing what's going on. You can also do the same for your emotions, and the phrase for emotions is I'm feeling. So you might say to yourself, I'm feeling anxious, or you might say I'm noticing that I'm feeling angry, or I'm noticing that I'm feeling scared, or I'm noticing that I'm feeling guilty about something, or whatever else that it might be. And when you're commenting on your feelings in that way, again, you're creating a bit of a healthy gap. If you're experiencing sensations or urges, the phrase to use for those is I'm experiencing. So you might say I'm experiencing pangs of hunger, or I'm experiencing an urge to cry, I'm experiencing an urge to scream, or I'm experiencing an urge to whatever it might be. The other thing to do when we're using diffusion in that way is to really then notice the impact that it has on you. So one thing that my clients often talk about when I teach them diffusion, and when they're talking about and when we're reflecting on the exercise, something they often say is, I feel like it doesn't have as big an impact on me as the actual thought itself. And so that's the little gap that we're wanting. So you're still experiencing it, but it's not as intense. So it's kind of taking the edge off. Again, it's not going to get rid of how you're feeling. It's not going to change anything per se. What it's going to do is it's going to take the edge off enough for you to then be able to keep going on with your day. It's you rising above the clouds in that blue expanse where it's a bit peaceful and you're noticing what's going on. And you know what? Sometimes even up there it's not going to be peaceful because you're noticing that there's a storm raging underneath you. And when you're noticing that, you're still going to have uncomfortable thoughts and uncomfortable feelings. And the reason why that happens is because it tells us that we're engaging in something that's meaningful to us. And when we are engaging in something that's meaningful to us, it's important. And if it's important, we're human, we're going to have feelings about it. So if something's important to you and you want to make that commitment to take action that's in line with who you are as a person and that's in line with your values as a person, then it's about making room for that discomfort, separating from unhelpful thoughts, and moving along and taking that action to do what's important for you. So that was a very short and brief description of using diffusion in terms of rising above the clouds and accessing that part of your mind that will be that we call the observing mind, that part of you that takes a step back and just notices with an attitude of openness, curiosity, being non-judgmental, of what's going on internally in your mind, your thoughts, your body, your sensations, as well as your external world. So this is something that, we often work with our clients and teach our clients. And if it's something that you want to learn a little bit more about, then don't hesitate in getting in contact with us and perhaps maybe making an appointment with one of us to help you work through it a little bit more. But when used consistently, it can be a really powerful technique to help you overcome some of those unhelpful thoughts and feelings that can get in the way of you achieving some of those outcomes that you would like to achieve for yourself. So if you'd like to get in touch with us, please do. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments or send us some questions, and we can help out in terms of working through some of those with you, and hopefully you find it helpful for yourself, and let us know how you go. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I will catch you next time. Bye for now.